Hey y'all, it's Melody. Happy October. I hope y'all are doing swell. 2025 has been a crazy decade. I was hearing in the news that they were looking at the no-fault divorce laws, and I thought it was very important for everyone to know how we got the no-fault divorce laws and why it's better for everyone if we keep them. In the United States of America, before 1969, if you wanted a divorce, you'd have to prove that there was infidelity, abuse, or abandonment. You'd have to bring your proof to court, and the judge could either grant or deny your divorce. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, as it turns out, it was not so easy. It was actually really difficult. I did a little research, because I wanted to know what kind of evidence they would need in court. Like, for example, if you wanted to prove infidelity in court, you'd have to prove that your partner had a desire to cheat, had the opportunity to cheat, and you'd have to have evidence of a physical act. So picture this. You're a housewife in the early 1900s. You're out running your errands while your devoted husband is busy at work all day to provide for you and your 7 children. And you finish your errands a little early, so you have a little bit of time to get home and relax for a couple of minutes before he gets back. You walk into the house, and you catch your husband in bed with his mistress. So now you have to grab her clothes and run, or they're not going to believe you in court, because now it's just your word against his. And she's not going to tell. So now you're stuck in this triangle marriage because your husband doesn't want you to leave, because that'll make him look bad. I mean, what will people think? So yeah, it was pretty difficult. Nowadays, you don't have to worry about that because we have something called no-fault divorce. For now. But how did we get here? And why did we need no-fault divorce? Because I mean, if you can overlook a little cheating, I mean, what's the harm really? Well, turns out there was a lot of harm. Because back then, the husbands weren't so different from the husbands of today. A lot of them would be the perfect gentleman. Their bride-to-be's wish was their command. They were pulling out all the stops, all the flowers, all the candy, all the gifts. And then on the wedding night, all of a sudden he flips a switch. In his head he thinks, well, now you're trapped and you can't leave. And the bride finds out that her husband is an abusive monster. But now it's a little bit late to go back because it's 1899. Except luckily for you, that was the very same year that a bunch of women lawyers got together to form a women's only club called the National Association of Women Lawyers, also known as the NAWL. They started this women's only club because women were not allowed in established organizations at this time, but also they started as a way to combat sex discrimination and also express their professional identification. So they made it together to help women get widow's pensions and to escape these often abusive marriages. Because back then, if your husband didn't want a divorce, you weren't getting a divorce. And besides that, a lot of the judges in the more conservative jurisdictions were not too keen on handing out divorces. They figured once you got married, and you said that till death do you part in the vow, you should stick to it. That's what they thought. But something as small as a husband's disapproval or a judge's denial is not going to keep a good girl down. A lot of the women were very resourceful. So they figured out other ways to get out of those pesky marriages. Some of them would run away or send their husbands for milk and report him missing. Or if their husband decided to compromise, they could get a migratory divorce. Back then, if you really wanted to get a divorce and your husband agreed, but your judge did not, you could travel and go to a more liberal jurisdiction. Some couples that could afford it would even go and get something called a quickie divorce. The quickie divorce is what happened when the couple traveled from the East Coast to the West Coast, to states like Nevada, Utah, or Indiana, and they just get their divorces there. But they had a little fun while they were doing it. Some of these places that were notorious for the quickie divorces would even set the couples up with accommodations and restaurants, and even throw them a little party to celebrate. So, all's well that ends well, right? Wrong. There was growing concern from some of the conservatives that the divorce laws in some states were overly lenient, and they had to put a stop to it. So, in 1906, President Theodore Roosevelt met with Congress to draft up some divorce laws so they could be more uniform state to state, and they could get a handle on these divorce rates. Well, a bunch of the women's groups heard about this and they were very upset. The NAWL stated that they feared the likelihood that men would once again be determining matters of great importance for women's lives. And yeah, that was a very understandable concern. But they didn't really have a whole lot to worry about because the judges across all the states didn't really care that much. They started to get a little bit more lax on the divorce laws and a little bit more lenient with handing out the divorces anyway. Despite Teddy and his friends gathering together to do all that work, it was really for nothing because by 1915, 1 in 7 people in America who were married had gotten divorced, which made it the highest divorce rate in the world at the time. Because, this is America, so we're always number one. In 1947, the NAWL gathered together and they voted to draft the very first bill outlining what modern no-fault divorce looked like. In this bill, the law no longer required a wronged person for a divorce to be granted. You could just tell them, I don't want to be married anymore. And they'd be like, all right, cool. And they would just grant your divorce, which was a very huge win for women at this time. However, like anything concerning women's rights, people did not want to support this bill. Actually, it took a pretty long time to get people on board. Like a little bit over 20 years. But in 1969, California became the first state to adopt it as a law. And then one by one, all 50 states adopted the bill in some form, with the last state being New York in 2010. So, it was a very long road, but in the end, that's one for women. Hopefully, you learned a lot with me today about why no-fault divorce is so important and how dangerous it could be if we didn't have that law. Let me know what else you want to see in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!